12 interpreters failed. 1 cleaning lady ended the war. 90 seconds. That's how long it took for the most feared man in Marowak, Pennsylvania to decide whether someone lived or died. They called him Dominic Vale. Not Mr. Vale. Not Sir. Not even boss, unless you said it with the kind of respect that comes from fear, not manners. Dominic's world was built on silence, silent payments, silent threats, silent graves. The only loud thing in his life was the city itself, the sirens, the trains, the cold wind off the Monongahela River cutting through alleyways like a blade. But on this night, inside the top floor of the Garnet Spire, the city was muted. The windows were thick enough to stop sound and bullets. The door locks were smart enough to deny God. A long black table stretched through the room like a funeral plank. At its head sat Dominic Vale, sleeves rolled to the forearms, watch face down so no one could read his time. He didn't like clocks facing upward. Too honest. Around him sat his lieutenants, Rafa Knives Morales, his enforcer with dead eyes and quick hands. Calvin Stroud, his accountant who could bury money better than a cemetery. Mara Quinn, his operations strategist, sharp as a paper cut and twice as dangerous. And across the table were the visitors. They arrived in 3 cars, no license plates, escorted through the garage like royalty that didn't deserve daylight. A Serbian arms broker. A Brazilian port fixer. A Korean logistics mastermind. Each of them brought an offer. Each of them carried a threat. Dominic didn't need new friends. He needed something rarer. He needed an agreement that prevented a multi-front war. Because in the past 6 weeks, his shipments had been touched. Not stolen, not hijacked, touched. Slight delays. Tiny misroutes. Customs inspections that never happened before. Someone with intelligence, money, and a reason was pressing his empire like a bruise. And when that starts, a boss has 2 options. Strike first, or bleed quietly until the city forgets his name. Dominic didn't bleed quietly. The only problem was, this meeting required language. And language was where people betrayed you. They had already tried 12 interpreters. 12. One stuttered on the word payment, swapped it for tribute, and nearly turned a negotiation into a feud. One turned pale when Dominic looked at him. One tried to record the conversation and got walked out with his phone in his throat. Now the 13th interpreter, a young woman in a blazer, sat trembling at the end of the table. Her hands were folded so tightly her knuckles looked like chalk. Dominic leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her. "Translate accurately," he said calmly, "or don't translate at all." The Serbian broker, Milan Petrovic, smirked and spoke fast in Serbian, the kind of fast that wasn't meant to be understood. A string of words, sharp as chain links. The interpreter swallowed, hesitated, then translated. "He says he is concerned about delays." Dominic's gaze didn't move. His voice stayed soft. "That's not what he said." The interpreter blinked. It is." Dominic lifted a finger. Rafa Morales reached under his jacket, not pulling the gun out, just letting the room know it existed. Milan spoke again, slower this time, still smiling. The interpreter translated again. This time she added something about partnership and mutual benefit. Dominic stood up. The chair legs scraped the floor like a warning. "I'm done," he said. Mara Quinn leaned toward him. "Dom." But Dominic's eyes had already found the flaw in the room. The shaky interpreter wasn't the main problem. The main problem was that he didn't trust any words that traveled through another person's mouth. And then a door opened. Not the main door. The service door behind the credenza. A woman stepped in with a mop bucket and a cart of rags, moving like she belonged to the building more than anyone else in it. Gray uniform. Cheap shoes. Hair pinned back. No jewelry. No perfume. No presents. Her name tag said, Evelyn Parker. She didn't look at anyone. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask permission. She just began wiping fingerprints from a side table like she was cleaning a kitchen after dinner. The interpreter looked relieved, like the interruption gave her lungs. Dominic didn't even glance at the cleaning woman, because men like him didn't notice people who were trained to disappear. Milan Petrovic chuckled and muttered something in Serbian under his breath to the Brazilian. A private insult. The kind men say when they think no one in the room is dangerous enough to understand. And that's when the mop stopped. Evelyn's hand froze on the handle. She didn't turn around at first. She just said, quietly, in perfect Serbian, "Don't call him a butcher. In this city, even the butchers have families." The room went still. You could hear the building hum. Milan's smile fell off his face like a mask. The Brazilian port fixer, Davi Rocha, leaned forward slowly. What did she just say? Evelyn turned to face them, expression neutral. Dominic didn't move, but his attention snapped to her like a gun cocking. Rafa Morales stood halfway up, ready. Dominic's voice remained calm. "You speak Serbian?" Evelyn nodded once. "Yes." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "How many languages do you speak?" Evelyn glanced at the interpreter, who looked like she might faint. Then Evelyn answered in Korean, directed at the Korean mastermind. "Enough to know you're lying about the docking schedule." The Korean man's eyes widened. "Excuse me." Evelyn switched to Portuguese for Davi Rocha. "You keep saying, inspection delays. In Brazil, that phrase means you bribed the wrong person." Davi's jaw tightened. Then she looked at Dominic and spoke in clean, unaccented English again. "And your interpreter is missing half the meaning. Not because she's bad. Because they're doing it on purpose." Dominic felt something cold in his stomach. Not fear, he didn't do fear. But something worse. Uncertainty. Because he had built an empire on knowing exactly what was happening in every room. And this woman, this invisible woman, had just revealed the room had been speaking behind his back. Dominic sat down slowly. "Who are you?" he asked. Evelyn didn't answer immediately. That hesitation, that small pause, told him she was measuring outcomes, not emotions. "I'm Evelyn," she said finally. "I clean here." Dominic studied her like a document with redactions. Her posture was calm. Not submissive. Not defiant. Controlled. Mara Quinn spoke softly, eyes fixed on Evelyn. "Where did you learn those languages?" Evelyn looked at Mara. "People talk. I listen." Dominic's finger tapped once on the table. "Then listen to this." He leaned forward and spoke to Milan Petrovic in English, slow and deliberate. "Tell him this deal continues only if I'm not being tested." The interpreter opened her mouth. Evelyn cut in, speaking Serbian, not translating word for word but translating meaning, tone, and threat like she'd lived in it. Milan's face shifted. He understood. He replied quickly. Evelyn translated instantly. "He says you are being tested," Evelyn said, "because someone wants to know if you're still sharp enough to lead." The air changed. Dominic's lieutenants stiffened. Dominic stared at Milan. Then Dominic smiled. A small smile, the kind that meant someone was about to lose more than money. "Who wants to know?" Dominic asked. Milan shrugged, feigning innocence, and answered in Serbian. Evelyn's eyes flicked, just once. "He says he doesn't know." Dominic watched Evelyn carefully. "And what do you think?" Evelyn took a breath. "He knows," she said. "And he's afraid to say it." Dominic leaned back. The 13th interpreter was sweating. Dominic didn't look at her anymore. He looked only at the cleaning woman. "Evelyn," he said, voice low, "you just walked into my war room and corrected men who kill for misunderstanding." Evelyn nodded slightly. "Then you shouldn't have hired people who misunderstand." Rafa Morales hissed, "Boss." Dominic lifted a hand. Rafa went quiet. Dominic stood again, but this time not as a threat. This time like a man making a decision. "You're not going back to the janitor's closet," Dominic said. Evelyn's face didn't change. "I didn't ask to leave it." Dominic's eyes sharpened. "You'll sit in on every negotiation, every call, every meeting. You'll speak only when spoken to, unless someone lies." Mara Quinn watched Evelyn like a hawk. "And if she lies?" Dominic's gaze didn't leave Evelyn. "Then she dies." Evelyn held his stare. No flinch. No pleading. Then, calmly, she said something in Korean to the Korean man. He stiffened. Dominic didn't understand the words, but he understood the effect. "What did you say?" Dominic asked. Evelyn answered in English. "I told him his second phone is recording this meeting." The Korean man's hand moved instinctively toward his pocket, then stopped. Dominic felt a slow grin spread inside him. Not humor. Admiration mixed with dread. Because Evelyn Parker wasn't just multilingual. She was dangerously literate in human behavior. Dominic stepped closer to her. "Where were you born?" he asked. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward the dark window, as if her past lived out there. Then back to Dominic. "Not here," she said. Dominic nodded once. "Then you're going to tell me everything." Evelyn's voice dropped just a little. "No," she said. "I'm going to tell you what matters." Dominic stared at her. And for the first time in years, Dominic Vale, the man who buried enemies and bribed laws, felt something he could not buy. Curiosity that tasted like danger. That night, after the syndicate men left under armed escort, Dominic ordered a full background check on Evelyn Parker. Calvin Stroud typed into databases that normally returned everything. Social security, birth records, employment, school, medical, nothing. Not a blank file. A non-existent one. Calvin looked up, voice tight. "Boss, she's not in the system." Dominic stared at the city lights beyond the glass. Mara Quinn asked the question Dominic didn't want to ask out loud. "Dom, what if she's here for you?" Dominic's voice was soft, dangerous. Then she picked the wrong building. He turned away from the window and walked toward the door. But before he exited, he said one final thing, quiet enough to feel like a prayer. Or maybe she picked the right one. Dominic didn't sleep. He didn't sleep often, but this time it wasn't paranoia. It was calculation. Evelyn Parker had walked into the heart of his organization and exposed two things in under 5 minutes. His interpreter pipeline was compromised. His enemies were comfortable enough to mock him inside his own tower. That meant the problem wasn't a leak. It was a system. At 5:12 a.m., Dominic stood in the Garnet Spire gym, empty except for a heavy bag swinging lightly as if someone had punched it and vanished. Rafa Morales entered. "We tailed her home. She doesn't have one." Dominic's eyes didn't change. "Explain." Rafa handed him a slip of paper. "She left the tower, walked 7 blocks, went into a 24-hour laundromat, and sat. Didn't wash anything. Just waited. Then she left at sunrise. Took a bus. Got off. Walked. Took another bus. Like she was shaking a tail." Dominic's mouth tightened slightly. "She knows we're watching," Mara Quinn said from behind them. "She'd entered quietly, phone in hand. And she's letting us know it." Dominic turned. "Bring her in." Mara's eyebrow arched. "Force." Dominic shook his head. "Invite." Because forcing Evelyn would answer one question, how brave she was. But inviting her would answer a better one. How confident. 2 hours later, Evelyn sat in Dominic's private office, not the conference room. That was deliberate. Dominic didn't want her performing for an audience. He wanted truth without witnesses. Evelyn sat with her hands folded, posture straight. She looked around once, noting exits, cameras, angles, distances. Dominic noticed. He poured coffee into 2 cups, placed one near her. She didn't drink it. Dominic sat opposite her. "Your file doesn't exist," Dominic said. Evelyn's eyes stayed on him. "That's a feature." Dominic leaned forward. Who made you a feature? Evelyn's answer was calm. People who didn't want me found. Law enforcement? Dominic asked. Evelyn's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You give them too much credit. Dominic watched her with the same intensity he used on enemies. You weren't hired here, he said. You placed yourself. Evelyn didn't deny it. Dominic's voice hardened. Why? Evelyn finally touched the coffee cup, but only to slide it aside. Because you're being boxed in, she said. And you don't see the corners. Dominic's eyes narrowed. I see everything. Evelyn met his gaze. Then tell me why your customs delays began 6 weeks ago, exactly 3 days after a union vote at Pier 9. Dominic's mind moved. Mara Quinn's eyes sharpened. Dominic spoke slowly. Pier 9 is controlled. Evelyn nodded. That's what you believe. Dominic's jaw tensed. Evelyn continued, her voice steady, almost clinical. Control doesn't mean ownership. Ownership doesn't mean loyalty. And loyalty doesn't mean silence. Dominic stared at her. She had just spoken the language Dominic understood best. Power. Mara stepped in. What do you want? Evelyn turned to Mara. A contract. Dominic's lips curled faintly. Everyone wants a contract. Evelyn shook her head. Not money. Not protection. Dominic waited. Evelyn said, I want access. Mara's voice sharpened. Access to what? Evelyn's eyes returned to Dominic. Your calls. Your emails. Your routes. Your problems. Your enemies. I want to see the whole board. Rafa's hand drifted near his waistband. Dominic remained still. And why would I give you that? Evelyn's answer was immediate. Because you're already giving it to someone else. Silence. Dominic felt the room tighten. Mara's voice was low. You're saying we have a traitor. Evelyn didn't say yes. She said something worse. I'm saying you have a translator who's been rewriting your reality. Dominic held her gaze. Who? Evelyn's eyes flicked toward the hallway, as if she could see through walls. Then she said, not one person. A network. Dominic exhaled slowly. He didn't like networks. Networks were hard to cut cleanly. He asked the most dangerous question a boss can ask. How do you know? Evelyn answered, because I've seen it before. Mara leaned closer. Where? Evelyn hesitated, only a second. Then, in New York. In Chicago. In places where men with money believed language was just words. Dominic's voice was quiet. That's not an answer. Evelyn replied, it's the only one you get today. Dominic studied her. She wasn't refusing out of fear. She was negotiating. Dominic tapped the desk once. Fine, he said. You get access. But you work for me. Evelyn's eyes were steady. No. I work with you. Rafa scoffed. Dominic's gaze snapped to Rafa. Rafa went silent. Dominic looked back at Evelyn. You don't get to set terms in my world, Dominic said. Evelyn's tone remained calm. Then you don't get to survive it. That hit the room like a slap. Mara Quinn's expression changed, just a little. Because Mara wasn't loyal to Dominic out of romance. She was loyal to outcomes. And Evelyn sounded like outcomes. Dominic stood. He walked to the window, stared down at Marowak streets. Then he said, prove it. Evelyn rose. Give me 1 hour. Dominic turned. 1 hour to do what? Evelyn answered, to show you who's been rewriting your deals. Dominic's eyes hardened. If you're wrong, Evelyn cut in gently, you'll kill me. Yes. You said that already. Dominic stared at her. Then, with a slow motion of his hand, he granted permission. Mara escorted Evelyn into the adjacent operations room where screens displayed shipping routes, ledger codes, dock camera feeds. Calvin Stroud was there, uneasy. You're giving her access, he whispered to Mara. Mara's eyes didn't leave Evelyn. I'm giving her a chance to show me whether we're already dead. Evelyn moved through the room like she'd built it. She didn't ask what things were. She inferred. She pointed to a route mapping screen. This lane should be quiet. Calvin frowned. It is quiet. Evelyn tapped a keyboard. Not in Mandarin. She switched a language filter. A hidden set of notes appeared, messages embedded in shipment labels, written in Chinese characters, disguised as routine port codes. Calvin's face drained. What is that? Evelyn's voice was flat. A conversation. Not yours. Mara stepped closer. Who's talking? Evelyn scrolled. Then she froze. She pointed at a repeated symbol string. This, she said, isn't Chinese. It's a cipher using Chinese radicals as camouflage. Calvin stammered. How do you? Evelyn didn't answer. She decoded it in minutes. The messages referenced Pier 9, Union leadership, and Dominic's internal schedule. Mara's voice was cold. This is insider information. Evelyn nodded. Yes. Dominic entered the room, eyes sharp. Tell me. Evelyn turned the monitor toward him. Dominic read. And as he did, something in his posture shifted. He wasn't angry yet. He was recalibrating. The messages weren't just discussing shipments. They were discussing Dominic, predicting his reactions, anticipating his moves, like someone was studying him as a pattern. Dominic's jaw tightened. Who is sending these? Evelyn highlighted a signature marker at the end of each message, a single stylized character. Mara whispered, That's not a name. Evelyn replied, It's a brand. Dominic stared at it like it was a bullet hole. Then Evelyn said the line that changed everything. This network isn't trying to steal from you, Dominic. She met his eyes. They're trying to replace you. The room went silent. Rafa's voice was low. Boss, we need to start cutting heads. Dominic didn't move. Because Dominic understood something Rafa didn't. If you cut too early, you cut blind. And if Evelyn was right, this wasn't a rat. This was a system with layers. Dominic spoke slowly. How deep? Evelyn answered. Deep enough that your next meeting will be your last, unless I speak. Dominic stared at her. Next meeting with who? He asked. Evelyn's eyes drifted to Mara, then back to Dominic. The man you think is your ally, she said. And the man who's actually been translating your downfall. Dominic's voice dropped into something like steel. Name him. Evelyn paused. Then she said, Father Callahan. Mara blinked. The priest. Dominic went still. Because Father Callahan wasn't just a priest. He was the man who blessed Dominic's mother at her funeral. The man who sat with Dominic in childhood when the world taught him violence. The man Dominic had quietly funded for years because even devils need someone to pretend they're human. Dominic's voice was barely audible. That's impossible. Evelyn's eyes didn't soften. No, she said. That's why it works. Dominic Vale didn't storm the church. That was what his enemies expected. Rage, violence, noise. Dominic chose something worse. He chose patience. Father Callahan's church sat on a hill in Merriwick, old brick, stained glass, a place where poor people prayed and rich people pretended they cared. Dominic arrived alone in a black sedan, no guards visible. But Mara Quinn watched from across the street in an unmarked car. Rafa Morales had 2 men on rooftops. Calvin Stroud monitored phones and cameras from a van. And Evelyn Parker sat beside Mara, expression unreadable. Mara didn't like it. You're sure? Mara asked quietly. Evelyn's gaze was fixed on the church doors. I'm rarely sure. I'm just usually correct. Dominic entered. Inside, the church smelled like wax and dust and something older. Guilt, maybe. Father Callahan appeared near the altar, hands folded, face warm. Dominic, the priest said softly. It's been a while. Dominic's eyes were calm. It has. Callahan smiled gently. How have you been? Dominic looked around the empty pews. Busy. Callahan gestured to a side room. Come. Let's talk. They sat in the confessional room, but not in the booth. 2 chairs, a small table, a Bible open like a prop. Callahan poured tea. Dominic didn't drink it. Callahan noticed. still cautious. Dominic's voice was even. Still alive. Callahan nodded slowly. You didn't come here for tea. Dominic leaned forward, elbows on knees. I came here for truth, he said. Callahan's eyes softened. Truth is hard for you. Dominic's mouth twitched faintly. Not as hard as lies. Silence stretched. Then Dominic spoke. I know about Pier 9. Callahan blinked. Just once. Pier 9. Dominic watched his face. The union vote. The delays. The coded messages. Callahan's expression stayed composed. Dominic, I don't know what you... Dominic interrupted softly. Don't do that. Callahan's jaw tightened slightly. Dominic continued. You taught me how to listen when I was 13. You told me people confess without words. He leaned in. So confess. Callahan's hands trembled slightly, then steadied. You've done terrible things, Callahan said. Dominic nodded. Yes. Callahan's eyes sharpened. And you think I'm behind your problems? Dominic's voice stayed calm. I know you're connected. Callahan's face changed then, like warmth draining out. You don't understand what's coming, Callahan said quietly. Dominic studied him. Explain. Callahan exhaled. You built your empire on fear. But fear ages. It dulls. It turns into resentment. People want new kings. Dominic's voice was low. Are you preaching? Callahan's eyes narrowed. I'm warning you. Dominic leaned back slightly. You're part of it. Callahan's mouth tightened. I tried to stop it. Dominic's gaze sharpened. Stop what? Callahan hesitated, then spoke, as if choosing confession over survival. A consortium, he said. Not gangs. Not mobs. Something cleaner. Corporate. International. They don't want your territory. They want your infrastructure. Dominic's eyes stayed calm, but inside, something turned. Who are they? Dominic asked. Callahan shook his head. You don't fight them with guns. Dominic's voice was cold. You don't answer questions with sermons. Callahan leaned forward. Dominic. They approached me because I'm close to you. They offered protection for the church. Money. Influence. They said Marowak would be safer without you. Dominic stared. And you believed them? Callahan's eyes flicked with guilt. I believed parts of it. Dominic stood slowly. I should kill you, Dominic said softly. Callahan didn't flinch. Yes. Dominic stepped closer. Tell me who leads them. Callahan swallowed. I don't know the leader. I only know the name they use. Dominic's eyes narrowed. Say it. Callahan whispered. The Meridian Circle. Outside, in Mara's car, Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Mara asked, What does that mean? Evelyn answered, It's not a gang. It's a strategy. Inside the church, Dominic's voice was low. Who's their point man? Callahan hesitated. A woman. Dominic froze. Callahan continued, They sent someone to observe you, to measure you. Dominic's throat tightened. Name. Callahan whispered, Evelyn Parker. Dominic's eyes went cold. For the first time since this began, Dominic felt something that resembled betrayal. But it wasn't shock. It was clarity. Outside, Mara looked at Evelyn like a blade. Evelyn didn't deny it. She just said quietly, Now you understand why I needed access. Mara hissed, You set us up. Evelyn replied, No. I walked into a trap that was already built. I'm changing its shape. Inside the church, Dominic's voice was deadly calm. So you lied, he said to Callahan. Callahan shook his head fast. No, Dominic, she wasn't sent to kill you. She was sent to replace me, Dominic finished. Callahan's shoulders slumped. Dominic stepped away, breathing slow. Then he said, Why didn't you tell me? Callahan's voice cracked. Because you would have started a war that burns everyone. Dominic turned back, eyes sharp. And now? Callahan looked up. Now they've already started. Tonight. Dominic's stomach tightened. Where? Callahan said. Pier 9. They're going to stage an accident. A fire. A collapse. Blame it on your men. Federal response. Raids. Seizures. You'll lose everything in 48 hours. Dominic's eyes flashed. He left the church without another word. Outside, Mara demanded, "What happened?" Dominic's voice was steel. "We go to Pier 9. Rafa's eyes gleamed. "Finally." Evelyn stepped forward. "If you go loud, you lose." Dominic's gaze locked on her. "You're part of this." Evelyn nodded once. "I was recruited." "Yes." Mara's jaw clenched. "So you're the enemy." Evelyn's voice didn't shake. "I'm the correction." Dominic stared at her, fury simmering. Evelyn continued, "The Meridian Circle thinks you're predictable. They think you'll respond with violence. They built tonight around that." Dominic's voice was low. "Then what do we do?" Evelyn answered, "We translate their plan into a failure." Dominic held her gaze. "You have one chance," he said. Evelyn nodded. "I know." They moved. Pier 9 was a giant ribcage of metal cranes and shipping containers stacked like urban tombstones. Wind screamed through it. Dominic's men approached in silence. No headlights, no sirens, no bravado. Evelyn listened, literally. She held a small device, radio scanner, frequencies mapped. Mara whispered, "What are you doing?" Evelyn replied, "They're speaking. We're finally hearing." On a hidden channel, voices spoke in coded English, businesslike, calm. Evelyn translated in real time. "They're positioning accelerants. They'll ignite at 2:08 a.m. Then call it an electrical failure." Dominic's voice was sharp. "Where?" Evelyn pointed. "Warehouse C." They moved. Inside Warehouse C, men in work vests, fake union uniforms, were placing containers of fuel behind structural supports. Rafa wanted to shoot. Dominic held him back. Evelyn whispered, "If you kill them, you confirm the narrative." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Then what?" Evelyn's eyes were cold. "We expose them. Publicly." Mara frowned. "How?" Evelyn pulled out her phone and opened a live stream interface. Anonymous channel, pre-configured. Calvin's voice crackled in Dominic's ear. "Boss, federal channels are active. Someone tipped them already." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "So the raid is staged?" Evelyn nodded. "Yes." "They want cameras. Headlines." Dominic's hands clenched. Evelyn's voice was firm. "Then give them a better headline." They recorded everything: faces, placement, timestamps, radio chatter. Then Evelyn did something Dominic didn't expect. She stepped out into the open. A fake worker saw her. "Hey, who are you?" Evelyn spoke in Russian. The man froze, confused. Then Evelyn spoke in Serbian. He went pale. Then in Korean. His partner panicked. Evelyn was speaking their languages, telling each of them different things. Mara whispered, "What is she saying?" Evelyn's voice stayed steady as she spoke and walked, fearless. "She's splitting them," Mara realized. Evelyn was translating fear into chaos. The crew started arguing, each believing the other had betrayed them. One reached for his phone. Another shoved him. Dominic watched, stunned. Evelyn wasn't fighting. She was reprogramming. Then the sirens started. Federal vehicles rolling in, too fast, too coordinated. The Meridian Circle's plan was moving. Evelyn turned and shouted in English, loud enough for nearby cameras to catch. "They're setting the fire. Look!" Dominic's eyes widened. Mara hissed, "You're making us visible." Evelyn snapped, "We're already visible. We're just controlling the subtitles." Agents rushed in, guns drawn. Fake workers scattered. Evelyn kept the camera rolling. Then a gunshot cracked. Rafa spun. One of the fake workers fired toward Evelyn. Dominic's body moved before thought. He shoved Evelyn sideways. The bullet hit metal. Evelyn fell hard, breath knocked out. Dominic hovered over her, eyes blazing. In that split second, Dominic realized the truth. She wasn't here to kill him. She was here to redirect the kill shot. But the Meridian Circle didn't care anymore. They were escalating. A second shot rang out. Then a third. And somewhere in the warehouse, a spark caught fire. Not the planned controlled one, an uncontrolled one. Mara shouted, "Dom, we need to go." Dominic grabbed Evelyn's arm and pulled her up. Evelyn's eyes met his. And she said, breathless, "This is the moment they wanted." Dominic growled, "Then we ruin it." The fire at Pier 9 spread faster than it should have. That was the first sign it wasn't just sabotage. It was an execution. Flames climbed up container stacks like they had been fed a map. Smoke rolled into the sky, thick and black, visible from downtown, visible from the highways, visible from every news chopper that would arrive soon. Dominic Vale stood near the warehouse entrance, watching his world ignite. Rafa Morales shouted over the noise, "Boss, we can wipe them out right now. Just say the word." Dominic didn't answer. Because Evelyn Parker was coughing beside him, eyes watering, but still listening, head tilted slightly as if the fire itself was speaking. Mara grabbed Dominic's sleeve. "Dom, the feds are here. If they connect you to this, you're finished." Dominic's jaw clenched. "They'll connect me no matter what." Evelyn rasped, "Not if we connect them first." Dominic turned. "How?" Evelyn pointed toward the agents. "Look at their formation," she said. "That's not standard. Someone coordinated their entry points." Mara narrowed her eyes. "You're saying they're compromised?" Evelyn nodded. "Some are. Enough to control the narrative." Dominic's mind moved quickly. If the Meridian Circle could choreograph federal response, they weren't a street syndicate. They were an intelligence-grade machine. Dominic asked, "What's their endgame tonight?" Evelyn's eyes were sharp despite the smoke. "To make you react violently on camera. To make you look like the terrorist. To justify freezing your assets, seizing your ports, and installing a new, clean leadership." Dominic's hands curled into fists. Rafa growled, "Let me handle it." Dominic finally spoke, voice low, "No." Rafa blinked. "Boss." Dominic turned to him, eyes like ice. "You want to win? Then you stop thinking like a gun." Rafa hesitated, furious, but obeyed. Dominic looked at Evelyn. "What do we do?" Evelyn swallowed, pain visible for the first time. "We don't fight the fire. We fight the story." Mara's eyes flicked toward the cameras arriving. "News choppers." Evelyn nodded. "Good." Calvin's voice crackled in Dominic's earpiece. "Boss. Social media is already lighting up. Accounts are posting that this is a Vale operation gone wrong. They're tagging federal spokespeople." Dominic's stomach tightened. Evelyn said, "They preloaded the narrative." Dominic looked at Mara. "Can we trace the accounts?" Mara shook her head. "Burner farms. Bots." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "Not all. One of them will be human. The one giving direction." Dominic stared at her. "Find it." Evelyn closed her eyes for half a second, listening to radio chatter again. Then she said, "They're using 2 layers. Public posts and private coordination. The private one is on a language channel." Mara frowned. "Language channel?" Evelyn opened a translation app, not for translating words, but for searching patterns. Meridian Circle recruits globally. They coordinate in minor dialects to avoid detection. Dominic stared. "Which dialect?" Evelyn's fingers moved quickly. "I heard it earlier." She listened again, eyes narrowing. Then she said, "Hakka." Mara blinked. "That's..." Evelyn cut in, "Already working. Rare enough to hide. Common enough for their network." Calvin's voice came through. "We don't have Hakka linguists." Evelyn replied, "You do now." She typed. Cross-referenced. Filtered. Then she froze. "Found the human node," she said. Dominic leaned in. "Who?" Evelyn turned the screen toward him. "A username. A location ping. A device ID." Mara inhaled sharply. Because the ping wasn't across the ocean. It wasn't even across the state. It was inside Marowak. Inside a building Dominic knew. The Garnet Spire. Mara whispered, "They're directing this from your tower." Dominic's eyes went cold. Rafa snarled, "Tell me where. I'll carve a map." Dominic didn't move. He stared at the burning dock, then at the agents, then at the sky full of cameras. Then he said something none of them expected. "We're going back." Mara's eyes widened. "Now. Dom, the feds." Dominic's voice was absolute. "They want me here. So I won't be." Evelyn nodded faintly. "Good." They left in silence. No convoy. No show. Just one vehicle, slipping away like a shadow. Back at the Garnet Spire, the lobby was calm. Too calm. Dominic walked in like he owned the world, because in this building, he did. The guards nodded. None questioned him. But Evelyn's eyes tracked everything. The camera angles, the shift changes, the way one guard held his radio too tightly. Mara whispered, "Something's off." Evelyn whispered back, "Yes. They're expecting us to come loud later. Not quiet now." They took the private elevator to the top floors. Dominic's office floor was empty. Too clean. Too silent. Then Evelyn stopped. She stared at a maintenance door. The one that led to the service hallway, the hallway where she used to push her mop cart. Dominic followed her gaze. "What?" Evelyn said, "This is how they move without being seen." Rafa reached for the handle. Dominic stopped him. "Wait." Dominic looked at Evelyn. "What's behind it?" Evelyn's voice was tight. "A second spine of the building. Service elevators. Utility corridors. Rooms no one uses." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Like a hidden city." Evelyn nodded. "Exactly." Dominic inhaled slowly. "Then we walk it." They opened the door. The hallway beyond was narrow and dim, lined with pipes and conduit. It smelled like metal and disinfectant. They moved carefully. And then they heard voices. Not English. Not Spanish. Something clipped and coded. Evelyn's face went hard. "Haka," she whispered. Dominic motioned to Rafa. Rafa slipped forward like death on soft shoes. They reached a utility room with the door cracked open. Inside, 3 people sat with laptops and radios, wearing maintenance vests. They weren't maintenance. They were command. One of them spoke into a mic, calm and professional. Phase 2, lock assets. Phase 3, trigger indictment package. Dominic's chest tightened. Mara whispered, "This is the Meridian Circle." Evelyn's eyes didn't blink. "This is the local node." Rafa's hand hovered near his gun. Dominic raised a hand. "No." Dominic stepped forward and pushed the door open fully. The 3 people froze. The leader, a woman with sharp eyes and neat hair, stood slowly. She smiled. "Dominic Vale," she said in English. "Right on time." Dominic's voice was ice. "You're in my building." The woman smiled wider. "You let us in." Dominic's jaw tightened. The woman's gaze shifted to Evelyn. Her smile softened, almost affectionate. "And you brought her," she said. "Good." "Evelyn, you're late." Mara snapped. "Who the hell are you?" The woman turned to Mara. "I'm the future." Then to Dominic, "Call me Celeste Marrow." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Marrow. Like this city." Celeste smiled. "Exactly." Evelyn's fists clenched. Dominic noticed. "Do you know her?" Dominic asked Evelyn. Evelyn's voice was low. "Yes." Celeste stepped closer, hands open, non-threatening. "Evelyn isn't her real name," Celeste said, as if sharing trivia. "She's a specialist. A linguist. A behavioral analyst. We trained her." Dominic's gaze sharpened. "Trained her to do what?" Celeste's smile didn't fade. "To infiltrate systems," she said. "To translate intent. To make empires collapse without firing a shot." Dominic's voice was deadly calm. "So that's what this is." Celeste nodded. "Yes." Mara hissed, "Evelyn, you set us up." Evelyn finally snapped, voice sharp for the first time. "No." The room went still. Evelyn looked at Celeste, eyes burning. "You recruited me," Evelyn said. "You didn't own me." Celeste's expression softened. "Evelyn, you were built for this." Evelyn stepped forward. "I was built to understand people, not to destroy them for sport." Celeste's smile turned thin. "This isn't sport. This is hygiene." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Hygiene." Celeste nodded. "Criminal empires create instability. We replace them with controlled systems." Dominic laughed once. "Cold. You replace them with your own empire." Celeste shrugged. "Call it what you like." Dominic stared at the laptops. "You're running the dock fire from here." Celeste nodded calmly. "Yes." "And the public narrative. And the legal packet. By morning, your accounts will freeze. Your allies will deny you. Your men will scatter." Rafa growled. "I can end this right now." Celeste didn't flinch. "If you shoot me, 3 more nodes activate. The media package posts. The indictments release. You become the monster on every screen." Dominic's jaw clenched. Celeste smiled at Evelyn. "Come back. Finish what you started." Evelyn took a breath. Then she did something unexpected. She spoke in Hakka, fast and precise. Celeste's smile faltered. Mara whispered, "What did she say?" Evelyn kept speaking, Hakka, then Mandarin, then Russian, switching like someone turning keys in locks. Celeste's team looked confused, panicked, hands flying over keyboards. Dominic realized. Evelyn wasn't pleading. She was issuing commands. Dominic looked at the screens. Routes were changing. Uploads were failing. A countdown timer on one laptop blinked, then reset. Celeste's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Evelyn answered in English, voice steady. "I'm translating you into evidence." Calvin's voice crackled over comms. "Boss, something just hit. A massive upload. Anonymous. Video, audio, logs." Mara's eyes widened. "You sent it to the feds." Evelyn nodded. "To the right part of them." Celeste's face hardened. "You traitor," she hissed. Evelyn stepped closer. "No." She met Celeste's eyes. "I'm the correction." Celeste lunged, fast. Rafa moved faster. He slammed Celeste into the wall, gun at her throat. Dominic's voice was low. "Now what?" Evelyn's face was calm again, but her eyes were wet, not from smoke now. "Now," she said, "the meridian circle loses its local spine." Dominic stared at Celeste pinned to the wall. Then he looked at Evelyn. "And you?" he asked. "What are you now?" Evelyn swallowed. "A person who's tired of being invisible," she said. Dominic's gaze softened, just a fraction. Then he said, "You're not invisible to me." Sirens wailed in the distance. Not dock sirens. City sirens. Real ones. Mara's phone buzzed, breaking news notifications. Arrests, warrants, investigations. The narrative had shifted. Dominic Vale wasn't the headline anymore. The Meridian Circle was. Celeste glared at Evelyn, hatred pure. "This doesn't end," Celeste snarled. Evelyn leaned closer. "It already did. You just haven't translated it yet." Dominic turned away, already thinking 5 moves ahead. Because he knew one thing for sure. If the Meridian Circle existed, there were more cities like Marowak. More towers. More cleaning ladies. And somewhere out there, someone would come for him again. He looked at Evelyn. "This city owes you," he said. Evelyn shook her head. "No. This city doesn't even know I exist." Dominic's voice was quiet. "Then I'll make sure it does." Evelyn looked at him, and for the first time, there was real emotion in her eyes. Not fear. Not pride. Something like relief. Dominic opened his office door. "Welcome to the table," he said.